Have you ever heard of a war where humans were pitted against birds? Sounds absurd, right? But what if I told you it was true? In the vast plains of Western Australia, a conflict unfolded in the early 1930s that has since been dubbed the Great Emu War. A war not against another nation or a revolution, but against emus. Yes, you heard that right, emus. Thousands of these large, flightless birds native to Australia became the adversaries of the Australian soldiers. The circumstances that led to this peculiar conflict were a blend of environmental factors, economic pressures, and a dash of desperation. In this war, the combatants were not evenly matched. And the outcome? Well, it's not what you might expect. Stay with me as we dive into this bizarre chapter of history where man fought bird in an actual war. To understand the Great Emu War, we must first travel back to Australia in the early 1930s. Picture an Australia grappling with the aftermath of the Great Depression. The economy was in shambles, and the country was dotted with struggling farmers, many of whom were veterans of the First World War. They were trying to make ends meet by growing wheat in the vast, arid expanses of Western Australia. Now, imagine a landscape teeming with emus, large flightless birds native to Australia. In the 1930s, their population exploded to an estimated 500,000. These emus played a crucial role in the ecosystem, dispersing plant seeds and controlling pests. However, they were also migratory, and their search for food and water led them to the cultivated lands of the wheat farmers. The emus, with their voracious appetites, descended on the wheat fields, devouring and trampling the crops. For the farmers already battling economic hardship, this was a devastating blow. They were facing ruin, their livelihoods threatened by a feathered force of nature. The emus, oblivious to the human desperation they were causing, continued their feeding frenzy, turning blooming fields into barren landscapes. The farmers turned to the government for help, pleading for assistance in tackling this feathery menace. The government, recognizing the potential disaster unfolding in the wheat belt, started to consider unusual solutions. The emus were not just a nuisance anymore, they had become a formidable adversary, threatening the very existence of the farming community. The tension was palpable. Desperate times called for desperate measures. The idea was radical, the approach untested, and the potential for failure high. But with livelihoods on the line and a nation's food supply at risk, the Australian government made a decision that would go down in history. They declared war not on a foreign nation, but on the emus. The stage was set for an unprecedented conflict, one that would put man against nature in a way never seen before. And so, armed with machine guns and a mission, the Australian military went to war against emus. You heard it right. This was no ordinary war. Their opponents? A flightless bird, known more for its speed and height than its ferocity. The initial stages of the war were marked by chaos and confusion. The military, led by Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, adopted a mobile warfare strategy. They mounted machine guns on the back of trucks, hoping to mow down the emu population as they scurried across the golden fields of Campion. But the emus were not so easily defeated. Their surprising speed and erratic patterns made them elusive targets. The birds, in their uncanny wisdom, seemed to understand the range of the guns, staying frustratingly just out of reach. Even when within range, their thick hides and lean bodies allowed them to withstand multiple rounds before going down. And then there was the terrain. The vast open fields of the Western Australian outback, while beautiful, were not conducive to a quick and decisive military victory. The trucks couldn't keep up with the emus, who disappeared into the landscape only to reappear in another wheat field miles away. But these were no ordinary adversaries. The emus proved to be more formidable than anyone could have expected. The stage was set for a war that was as bizarre as it was unprecedented. As the war raged on, it became clear that this was no ordinary conflict. The Great Emu War was taking a surprising turn. The Australian military, initially confident, found themselves grappling with an enemy that was elusive, resilient, and seemingly impervious to their tactics. The turning point came when the emus began to adapt to the military's strategies. They learned to scatter and regroup, making it difficult for the soldiers to target them. The emus, it seemed, were not just mindless birds but intelligent creatures capable of strategic thinking. The public's reaction to the war was a mix of disbelief and amusement. The idea of the military battling birds was, for many, a source of entertainment. Yet, behind the laughter, there was a growing sense of unease. The war was not only draining resources but also highlighting the government's inability to deal with a seemingly simple problem. But it wasn't just the military and the public who were affected by the war. The emus too bore the brunt of the conflict. The relentless pursuit had disrupted their migration patterns, leading to unexpected consequences. Food sources were depleted as the emus were driven away from their usual paths. This resulted in increased competition for resources, affecting not only the emus but other wildlife as well. The war had also unintended consequences on the farmers. While the military's intervention was supposed to protect their crops, the chaos of the war often resulted in more damage. The emus, in their desperation to escape, trampled over fields, destroying the very crops they were supposed to be protecting. As the conflict continued, it became clear that this was not just a war against emus but a war against nature itself. The emus were merely trying to survive, adapting to the changes brought about by human intervention. And in their struggle for survival, they were proving to be a formidable opponent. The war was not going as planned. The emus, it seemed, were winning. The tide of war had turned, revealing a conflict that was far more complex and unpredictable than anyone had anticipated. The Great Emu War remains one of the most unique conflicts in history. A war not fought between nations, but between the Australian military and a flightless bird. A conflict that left a mark on the Australian landscape and its people. In the aftermath of the war, Australia grappled with the consequences. The emu population, though significantly reduced, proved to be resilient. The birds bounced back, continuing to roam the vast Australian outback, a testament to their remarkable adaptability and survival instincts. The farmers, on the other hand, found themselves in a tricky situation. The emus, despite the military's efforts, continued to ravage their crops, posing an ongoing challenge to their livelihood. The war had ended, but their struggle had not. As for the Australian military, their failure to curb the emu population led to public ridicule. The Great Emu War was seen as a farcical episode, a blemish on their reputation. However, it also served as a humbling reminder of the limits of military might against the untamed forces of nature. The legacy of the Great Emu War extends beyond its immediate aftermath. It has seeped into popular culture, often referenced in books, films, and even video games, serving as a source of amusement and intrigue. It's also been a favorite anecdote for comedians and satirists, who have used it to highlight the absurdity of the situation. Yet beneath the humor and ridicule, the Great Emu War carries a profound message. It underscores the intricate balance of our ecosystem and the potential consequences of disrupting it. It reminds us of the resilience of nature and the futility of trying to control it with brute force. The Great Emu War serves as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of conflicts and the resilience of nature when faced with human intervention. A tale of an unusual war, it leaves behind a legacy that continues to intrigue and amuse. A story that is as unique as the land where it unfolded. So, what can we learn from the Great Emu War? Well, quite a bit actually. This peculiar event in history offers us some intriguing lessons. Firstly, it underscores the importance of understanding and respecting our natural world. The emus, simple creatures that they are, were merely following their instincts, seeking food and water in a harsh environment. Secondly, the Emu War demonstrates that sometimes conventional solutions may not be the best fit for unconventional problems. The decision to use military force to combat the emu situation was, to say the least, an unusual choice. It shows us how thinking outside the box, approaching issues creatively, and considering the bigger picture can lead to more effective solutions. Finally, the Emu War serves as a reminder of the unpredictability of life. Despite all our advancements and technologies, we were outmaneuvered by a flock of flightless birds. It's a humbling realization, one that reminds us to never underestimate the power of nature. All in all, the Great Emu War is more than just an amusing anecdote. It's a tale of resilience, both of the emus and the Australian farmers. A testament to the unpredictability of life, and a lesson in humility for us all. Thank you for joining this journey through a peculiar piece of history. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing stories. Until next time, keep exploring the oddities of our world.